Today we'll be discussing the themes in Lord of the Flies. There are a number of themes such as primitivity, civilization, innocence, rules and order, fear, power, identity, religion, wisdom and knowledge, and youth. However, we're going to focus on the need for social order, power, vision, fear of the unknown, loss of identity, and loss of innocence. I'll ask you throughout the slideshow to take at least 2 notes per slide, and if you need time to pause or re-listen to it, feel free to go back a slide. So we're going to begin with the need for social order. On the island, the boys are separated from civilization. They attempt to create their own form of order and government, and that's focused around Ralph. Without someone to enforce the rules, however, the boys fail to even observe their own rules, and we see evidence of this in the children just going to the washroom everywhere and eating as many berries as they want. The boys eventually abandon the rules of civilization, and without social order, they commit, eventually, acts of savagery and murder. Next, we'll move on to the theme of power. To Ralph, power is democratic. The conch is a symbol of power, and it's interesting that it's actually Piggy who comes up with the idea of power, but Ralph who's the one who implements it, and this is because they each represent different elements on the island. To Jack, power is authoritarian. He tells his choir boys what to do, and they do it. Jack treats the members of his choir cruelly, and out of fear and the threat of violence, he maintains order. The Litlins begin to exercise power over small creatures, and sometimes people find this kind of power even when they don't actually have a lot of power. And Roger is a great example of someone who enjoys unrestrained power. We'll move forward to the idea of vision. So vision, on the island, mirages impair the boy's vision, and although Piggy's vision is poor, ironically, he's also the one who can see most clearly what they need to do to survive. Piggy's blind to the reality that evil exists in the boys themselves, and Simon has the clearest vision of the true nature of evil on the island, and we'll get to a slide on Simon later because he's important symbolically in the story, but only Simon gets to actually see the Lord of the Flies, and only Simon goes to the mountaintop to see the beast clearly in the daylight. Next, we have the important theme of the fear of the unknown. Ironically, again, we don't know who this quote comes from, but the quote suggests that we need to replace the fear of the unknown with curiosity. The boys are afraid on the island because they don't know where they are, why their plane crashed, or what will happen if they're not rescued. The Litlins fear the beastie or snake-like thing that comes in the dark, and the Biggins fear beasts that are still unknown. So the beast or the snake-like thing is the dead parachutist and the Lord of the Flies, and sometimes Simon when he comes down from the mountain. And so fear of the unknown also takes the shape of the boys themselves. The loss of identity is another equally important theme. And this is the idea that the boys begin to lose their individual identities. Litlins, Biggins, Sam and Eric, people blend together. They become identified by mobs rather than by individual characteristics. The choir, they become hunters. The mask allows the boys to become someone else, and that's when violence begins to emerge too. Jack's followers become a savage tribe, and Ralph has difficulty remembering that he is the leader and why rescue is important, as their goals change throughout the story. And poor little Percival, he even forgets his own name. We also have the theme of the loss of innocence. So Ralph's faith in democracy is completely shattered because none of the boys will listen or do what they're told or even seem to care about getting rescued. And following the rules doesn't seem to offer any protection to the boys. Piggy's belief in fairness is proven false throughout, and violence takes the lives of 3 boys. We'll leave a little bit of a suspense there. I won't give you a spoiler on that one. And the boys come to accept the notion that the world isn't completely good. I'd like you also to consider Simon as a possible Christ-like figure. So Simon goes alone into the jungle and confronts evil. Simon comes down from the mountain bringing news that will save the boys from their fear. And instead of listening to Simon, they ignore him. So think about the illusion that that's making to the Christ-like figure. What's interesting with this novel, too, is that it makes all kinds of allusions to the Bible, and it does so in the same order as the Bible. So from a literary perspective, that's really interesting to look at it that way. Finally, For consideration, Golding has said that The Lord of the Flies is an attempt to trace the defects of society back to the defects of human nature. He acknowledges that evil as a force lurks within every person. This actually came as a result of an experience. He went to war and he saw in full color the real brutality of humanity. And when he returned home, he continued to see some of those behaviors in the people around him. And these were good English, upstanding folk, and this was problematic for him. And so The Lord of the Flies is his response to this. As you read the novel, please track quotations that you feel are relevant to supporting these themes. These may be useful to you later in the course. Thank you.